I'm sick over this. I have worked for the last 12 years in public life, developing a reputation for honesty and directness and blunt talk, one that I think is well deserved. But, you know, when something like this happens, it's appropriate for you to question yourself, and certainly I am.
An emotional Christie yesterday. How much was the governor of New Jersey tarnished by the George Washington Bridge scandal? Well, it depends on who you ask. Wall Street Journal's Neil King joins us now with the details from Washington. Neil, thanks for being there.
Certainly.
So we saw this. He came out. There was a certain amount of contriteness there in his talking to the press. A certain amount of blame going around. What does this do for his 2016 hopes?
Well, there are two questions really. One is, does it damage it right now just as it is? And a lot of people argue that some of the luster has certainly come off the Christie image as the clean, kind of bipartisan, non-petty man of the people that tells it like it is. The other question is just how much exposure he still has, and it's considerable. I mean, you look at the press in New Jersey today, the Star Ledger says that his account sort of beggars belief, that there's a lot of things in the story that he told yesterday that still remain implausible to a lot of people, and the Democrats are going after him in a big way, and of course he faces several inquiries, both in the state of New Jersey, and now there's a federal inquiry. So the possibility that something will come up that ties this more closely to him, if not links it directly to him, is still fairly high, and that worries a lot of people in the Republican Party, because if that came out, it would be very, very damaging to Chris Christie.
Yeah, it certainly would be. We got a quote from Republican Senator from Wyoming, John Brasso. Elections are about the future, and in 2016, a couple of years from now, people are going to be focused on their own lives and their own families. Things that are happening today in the 2016 election are not going to be part of the future. That is reasonable, but people do vote for an individual, especially when they vote for president, don't they?
Yeah, and the magic about Christie, if you look back at his election in November, his re-election, and just the way he's polled generally, is that he's gotten big support among people that aren't necessarily the base of the Republican Party. Big support among women, big support in New Jersey among Hispanics. He has a sort of Teflon quality about him. We're going to have to see going forward whether that remains to be the case. You know.
Neil, he also got some support from some key Democrats, didn't he?
What? Yeah, you mean just in general or yesterday?
David Axelrod.
You know, a lot of people that watched that performance yesterday, particularly people like Axelrod, who have been in the business for a long time, said, wow, that was a pretty extraordinary performance. He was out there for almost 2 hours. He exhausted the press, essentially. He took every question. If you're a sporting fan, you're like, well, that was a great sort of championship bout that he waged. But there also, even inside of that nearly 2-hour performance, was a lot of the kind of things that people noted that are among his vulnerabilities. We'll see if some of those come to the fore.
Okay. Now, the thing about David Axelrod, he was a key Obama operative, but he does know the political sphere very well. So lives to fight another day, broadly speaking, is what he's saying. The other thing that I think is still in question about Chris Christie is that, yes, he's very popular in New Jersey, a fundamentally very democratic state. But how is he going to play on the national stage? And then when you layer on this perhaps tarnish, does the whole country forget about this in a couple of years?
You know, all along, when you watch Chris Christie in the 2012 campaign, when he would go to Iowa and other states as a surrogate for Romney, he would make various Jersey kind of jokes. I mean, Jersey travels along with the candidate pretty much more than any other state. You know, the whole kind of tough guy Tony Soprano thing. And Chris Christie would play off that as a joke, but clearly, you know, that was not his thing, and he was above that. Well, all of a sudden, you get a weird bridge scandal that kind of lends credence to that narrative and actually makes it stick to him. And if it does, that's going to dent his allure, particularly in places like Iowa that are so far away from, you know, the idea of closing lanes on the GW bridge, that it's going to seem a little odd.
Yes, it certainly would. Very culturally, very different. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Neil King of the Wall Street Journal.
Thanks, Simon. Take care.